Former Trump advisor Stephen Miller is furious at President Joe Biden and decided to yell at him throughout a Fox interview after host Maria Bartiromo asked him about Muslim refugees. So I'm going to talk about Maria Bartiromo because the way she's going to set up this question, the way she's going to frame this segment is absolutely abhorrent. Take a look.
I want to turn to the refugee situation, Stephen, because now you've got people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, take them all in. We have to resettle the Afghans. We've got to issue them 200,000 visas and let them live in America. Your thoughts on this debacle on top of the open border that we are talking about at the southern border, which COVID and terrorists and human trafficking and illicit drugs are flowing through.
All right. Again, the framing is absolutely ridiculous. It is incredibly over the top. And it really, I gotta do it. Okay. So immediately, AOC, refugees, southern border, COVID, terrorism, drugs. I love how she, by the way, hesitated a little bit after saying COVID, like, oh, my audience might actually not find that super scary because they don't really believe that COVID-19, but okay, terrorists, terrorists. Really, how many terrorists have come across the southern border, Maria? How many? They don't have to. You know why? Because we grow them here. We grow the terrorists here. The majority of the terrorists in the United States are domestic terrorists, and they're right wing. We're not importing them. They're here. The danger is inside the house. And guess what? The kind of rhetoric that you hear from Maria Bartiromo, and then, of course, you're going to hear from Stephen Miller, is actually what causes this. But first, a couple of points. The drugs, right? Oh, you know what's one of the biggest drugs that is killing people in this country? Fentanyl. Fentanyl's not coming from Mexico. That's manufactured here in the United States. Okay? COVID, right? And she ties COVID to immigration, right? Oh, the COVID, it's coming from the immigrants. Here's the thing. The Biden administration, much to the chagrin of progressives who are pushing against it, actually has continued Donald Trump's Title 42 deportations. So earlier this month, the CDC extended that order, basically saying that you could deport people, families, children, whatever, on the basis of, well, we're just doing, something about COVID. We're going to prevent COVID from coming into the country. So he's continued that, and there is no timeline on whether or not they're going to lift that order. And so, yes, we are absolutely deporting people on the southern border. So she's just making things up there right out of the gate. It is a gigantic mountain of bullshit. And of course, who better to scale Mount Bullshit than an actual troll, Stephen Miller?
Yeah, well, look, this is a double Biden disaster. First, as you mentioned, and as we discussed, he got rid of the Trump plan, the Trump conditions-based plan, and now Afghanistan's a terror wonderland once again, with terrorists just roaming around doing whatever they want to do. But the second part of this disaster is now he's opening our border to Afghanistan. Have we forgotten so quickly that the 9/11 terrorists were granted visas by our State Department? Have we forgotten so quickly that all that blood was shed because we weren't able to secure our own immigration system? Now we're going to repeat these mistakes again? The United States has no obligation, none at all, to say every person in the world who's living under Islamic theocracy has a right to come to our country. When did that become the mission? How many people does that apply to? How is that safe for us? How's that good for the Muslim world? If there are people who want to leave the Taliban because they don't want to live under Islamic Sharia law, if that's the reason they want to leave, then we can work with them to find a home somewhere else in the Middle East. But this open-ended obligation to take out every one of the 40 million people who would prefer to live here than under Sharia law is clinically insane. And we will rue the day that we made that decision. So I hope members of Congress will speak up before it is too late.
All right, so one nonsense point before I start. You ever notice how this guy kind of looks like Dr. Evil? Like a more evil clone of Dr. Evil, but like a younger Dr. Evil? That just happens to be even more with even more concentrated evil? Yeah, that's Stephen Miller for you. So let me go to his logic here. All right. So the people want to get away from Sharia law. All right. Well, okay, that's hardcore fundamentalists. That's religious right wing. Yeah, of course you want to get away from Sharia law. That's horrible. It's bad. As is, of course, all the different strains of religious fundamentalism. So we all agree that fundamentalism is bad. We agree that fundamentalism breeds oppression, breeds violence, and terrorism. Yet, according to Stephen Miller, those people by nature who are not fundamentalists and not likely to become terrorists are somehow dangerous because they're terrorists, and therefore we shouldn't bring them in. But that makes no sense. That is a 100% contradiction here. Okay, those two things are, we shouldn't bring them here. But you know, they're fleeing the Taliban. But you know, we shouldn't bring them here because they're dangerous terror. But aren't those the people you want to bring in? Those who are not dangerous, those who are trying to find a better life for themselves. They're fleeing an oppressive regime. But of course, Stephen Miller, total hypocrite. Here's why. We all know, of course, that Stephen Miller's family did the same thing. They fled an oppressive regime. They fled pogroms in Russia and in Poland during the Holocaust, where they were going and killing people as a result of their religion. So now he seems to have forgotten that and is now on the side of the people that would have turned away the Jews during World War II. And in fact, famously, the United States did. We turned away a boatload of Jewish refugees. And then, of course, they ended up going back to Germany and were summarily murdered. What did you think was going to happen? They didn't care. White nationalists did not care. Just like they don't care now. If a lot of these people, which, by the way, there's a really good reason that a lot of Afghans are, trying to leave that country, not just because of Taliban rule, right? Also, they might have helped us. And so when he goes back and says, well, there's no reason we should let them in. We have no responsibility for them. You mean the people that helped us while we were there, serving as interpreters and other jobs, other roles, helping the U.S. military while we were there for 20 years? Those are the people who now the Taliban has biometric data on. We just kind of let that biometric data just fall into the hands of the Taliban. Oh, here you go. Here's the data. Oops. And now they know everybody who helped us. And what do you think is going to happen? The Taliban is going to summarily murder these people. They're going to kill them. We absolutely have a responsibility to take those people in. As well as, of course, refugees that don't want to live under Sharia law. So it is total hypocrisy. A couple more points here. Miller also accused Biden of ignoring Trump's condition-based plan. Now, Trump's plan, let me get into that. Trump's plan released 5,000 Taliban fighters, including the leader, right? And then looked at releasing sanctions on the Taliban in exchange for peaceful withdrawal. And, if the Taliban kept its commitments, which is essentially severing its ties to Al-Qaeda, which they did. And then, of course, not attacking our troops as we pull out. All right. Now, the one thing that Biden did that was different, that I could see, is that Biden extended the deadline for withdrawal. First to September 11th, and then scaled it back to August 31st when the Taliban was like, hey, no, don't do that. So now, as part of the Doha agreement, the Trump administration agreed to an initial reduction of U.S. forces from 13,000 to 8,600 troops by July of 2020, followed by a complete withdrawal by May 1st, 2021. Taliban kept their commitments. And then, of course, pretty much by the time that was near withdrawal, we had about 2,500 troops there. And so, it was pretty easy for the Taliban, who was in an incredibly, powerful position, to basically sweep through the country. And that's what happened. So there it is. I think that's something that we all knew was inevitable, because you can't just go into a country and occupy it for 20 years and then leave and then expect, and not expect this. This is what happened. I mean, but guess what? A lot of defense contractors made a lot of money. A lot of generals, went to go on to work for those defense contractors and made major profits. So I guess it all worked out for them, not so much for Afghan civilians or United States service members who were killed or wounded as a result of this. And not, of course, the taxpayers who paid $2 trillion for this war, which we actually could have used to cancel all student debt, get Medicare for all, for everybody, and do, actual good things for this country. So, yeah. But here's the thing. To believe the Taliban will now go and target the United States after we've left, right? So, like, they're going to send fighters over there to New Jersey. No, that's clinically insane. Okay? The Taliban actually never wanted to fight us in the first place. Remember, the Taliban surrendered to us in 2001 unconditionally and even offered to hand over bin Laden 3 times. 2 prior to 9/11 and once afterwards. So, yeah. Yet the Bush administration and the Pentagon pushed us into a failed war for, again, the next 20 disastrous years. As soon as we're gone, I don't think they're going to be at all interested in us. No, they're going to be sitting there fighting ISIS-K. That's what's going to happen. So, yeah. Now, finally, let me just do another nonsense point here. I really get annoyed at the fake anger, okay? From Stephen Miller. You watch that, it seemed like super rehearsed. You know what I'm saying? Using all the right buzzwords to get the audience going, get them mad, whip them up into a lather against the Muslim refugees. And he doesn't even do it all that convincingly, to be honest. And look, the only reason, by the way, that Stephen Miller, that his dog in the fight is not wanting refugees at all. So he actually does believe in not taking refugees, even if he doesn't believe in his bullshit reasoning. He just doesn't want them because he's a white nationalist. He's incredibly racist. Afghans happen to be brown-skinned Muslims. So, of course, he wants them to go somewhere else or stay in Afghanistan or go to the Middle East. He also said, like, just go to other places in the Middle East. Moron. Afghanistan isn't in the Middle East. It's in Asia. It's right next to Pakistan. I mean, Southeast Asia. It's not even in the Middle East. He doesn't even know where it is. But again, the people he's talking to, they couldn't pick out Afghanistan on a map either. These are the same people that were okay with bombing Agrabah, which happened to be, of course, the fictional kingdom of Aladdin. Oh, yeah, bomb Agrabah. Oh, yeah, I'll show them. Oh, yeah, turn that place into glass. That's who Stephen Miller appeals to. And so, of course, if you're going to appeal to that crowd, who doesn't believe in facts at all, well, then, yes, you don't have to make sense. Just say the things that they want you to say. Muslims bad, Afghans bad, keep them out, build a wall, etc., and you pretty much have a paid speaking gig in Fox News anytime. That's how it works. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.